Hello, listeners of Code 3 Life Reinvented. I wanted to share a quick note and some comments before this next episode. The following episode was recorded February 3rd, 2026. As was my guest's custom to move around the timing due to weather conditions, this recording session, which is done online, was rescheduled several times. You see, my guest, Matt Hunt, was a diver by trade. And as you'll hear in this episode, he traded his life as a Midwest banker to become a Megalodon tooth diver in coastal North Carolina. I met Matt's wife at a networking event in my new hometown, and when she told me what her husband did and the career change he successfully executed, I just had to meet him. We met for coffee, and he told me his story. I realized I needed to have him as a guest on my show. Afterwards, we walked to his truck, and he showed me a display of teeth he'd recently collected, and he gave me two as gifts. It was at that point that I realized that Matt Hunt was a very generous man. After our recording, Matt emailed me because he wanted to re-record an answer at the end of the show so it would better help listeners. I don't know what he had in mind, and I still don't know what he had in mind. But generally, I have no problem if a guest wants to fix something. So we reschedule the re-record at 9 a.m. on Tuesday, March 10th. When I woke up that morning, he had rescheduled that meeting to the following Thursday, 2 days later. I thought, no problem. The weather must be good, and he wants to go dive. Wednesday, March 11th, one day before our rescheduled re-record session, I learned that Matt had died tragically doing what he loved on the ocean and in the sea, diving for fossils. It's with a heavy heart that I share this news. I didn't know Matt well, but he was about as earnest and kind as they come. Please send warm thoughts to his family and friends as you listen to this episode.
When you're on your deathbed, you are going to regret the things that you did not do way more than the things you did do. That, I think, is one thing that's kind of important. You got to be all in. If I'm going to make that big of a change in my life, I just wanted to go all in. If I wasn't in 100%, it was going to be hard not to be in at all. That's where I really kind of measure success is the seeds that I planted, did they grow? The biggest lesson that I've learned is the value in time. That's really what it takes. Taking every minute and utilizing it the best you can to get what you really want in life, what fulfills you.
Hi, it's AJ, your host of Code 3 Life Reinvented. And today I'm joined by a guest who I came across in my travels in my new hometown out here in coastal North Carolina. I happened to meet his wife at a networking event. And when she explained to me what her husband did, I said, okay, stop the press, shut the front door. I need to meet this guy. And that guy is here with me today. He has a really interesting journey, which we're going to explore. And I'm absolutely fascinated by what he's doing now. And I wanted to share it with the Code 3 Life Reinvented audience. So I'd like to welcome in our guest today, Matt Hunt. Thank you so much for joining the show today.
Well, thanks for having me, AJ. I really appreciate it.
I couldn't appreciate it anymore either. I'm looking at you. I know this is, at least for now, it's an audio podcast. And what I'm looking at is a guy with a diver down hat on. And behind him is a row of teeth, which we're going to get into here shortly. But I think, Matt, I just want to jump into it. And you've had an interesting professional arc. And I think when we met to talk about you coming onto the show, we met for coffee and had a really wonderful conversation. And I thought your story there was really interesting. And I want to start there because your story doesn't include a career pivot per se, but even more of a life pivot in some ways. And I think it's going to be really interesting to explore. So let's get into it. What were you doing prior to what you do now?
Prior to what I do now, I was in banking for 18 years. But I mean, this has been something that I've been doing I got certified when I was 13. So I've been diving over 31 years. The underwater recovery aspect really came into it at a young age, early 20s when I was working in a dive shop. So prior to diving, odds and ends jobs, grocery store, my biggest career stint was in banking. So everything from, teller on up into commercial lending.
And where were you doing it? What part of this great country
yeah,
were
sure.
you?
Yeah. So I'm a transplant down here in North Carolina. I was up in Michigan my entire life. My family's up there. It was just wanted to be someplace where diving was year round. But yeah, my entire career and everything was born and raised in Michigan.
If I remember, you started diving at a young age, right? With your parents, your dad or something?
Yeah, so the whole backstory really to my diving is we would always vacation up on Lake Superior in Michigan. Cold lake year round. But we vacationed in a small town called Grand Marais, which is right kind of in a bay, and they have a marina there. Back in the 90s, it was slow, no boats really coming in and out. And my dad was a scuba diver, so I'd watch him dive all the time under the water, and I would snorkel on top and kind of watch him dive. When I was about 9 years old, there was a storm that came through before we went on vacation. And my dad was out diving in this marina, and I got to see him walk up this boat ramp in full dive gear with a deck box, which at 9 years old, it looks like a treasure chest. So it's about a 3-foot by 1.5 foot box that people keep on their boats to store life jackets, fishing lures, different things like that. So seeing your father walk up a boat ramp at that young age, carrying a treasure chest, I kind of knew that's what I wanted to do. So it's kind of been instilled in me and embedded in me, and a desire and a passion is to be underneath the water, treasure hunting, finding things. So as soon as I turned 13 years old, I was of age to get certified and went out and got my certification, kind of set my career path based on that. Went to college, got my degree in business management, wanted to open up a dive shop. So my career kind of started off there. That was my first job or first step towards, going in the direction that I wanted to go into.
That's incredible. And I'm thinking about you as a young boy seeing your dad with a treasure chest, and I can understand why that made a huge impression on you and triggered this passion that has, as I've gotten to know you a little bit here, is definitely palpable in you. You started off with a dive shop, but then something happened, right?
Yeah. So I was working at the dive shop for right around 5 years. I was working there while I was in college. Absolutely loved every second of it. Learning the business, kind of the ins and outs. I never got into the instructing aspect of it. And that's really kind of where I got the underwater salvage and recovery started for doing that, is people would come into the dive shop. Hey, I lost a ring or watch or sunk my golf cart. So I would be, after hours, go out and do underwater recovery. Fell in love with it. Absolutely just enjoyed it. People that lose things underneath the water don't think they're ever going to see them again. So reuniting people with something they thought was gone forever was very rewarding. And then, so what really happened is I graduated in 2006 and I was still working at the dive shop, and the recession of 2008 hit. It was just that's kind of the point in time when I was getting close to, hey, this is something that I really want to start building, maybe go out on my own. And it was just the worst time to do it. So I continued doing underwater recovery, but I got into banking for steadier, higher paycheck. You get into the security of 9 to 5, you got the health insurance, retirement plan, and just kind of went into that, but still did the underwater recovery on the side. And then I was about 18 years with the sheriff's department too, doing body and weapon recovery for the county on volunteer side on that.
Wow. I mean, this is really who you are in so many ways, to start your career as an entrepreneur doing something you love. By the way, just a quick aside on this. I've done, I don't know what my total number of dives are, scuba dives, but maybe in the neighborhood of 30. I don't know. And where the water's warm and kind of tropical, resort diving plus probably as a way to think about it. I've never gone underwater in a huge lake. What is that like?
It depends on what lake it is. You get into the Great Lakes, and I've been diving in Lake Huron and shipwrecks down 200 feet, and it looks like you're diving in the ocean. You can see 100 feet of visibility. It's cold. It can be dark if there's not enough ambient light down there. So some are beautiful. I've been into everything from retention ponds to rivers to small lakes, and I've had it where you can hold your hand up 3 inches in front of your face and not see it. So it's just a variety. Depends on where you're diving and the time of year.
The deepest I've gone is maybe 105 feet, 110 max. So 200, I can't even imagine what that's like. And that's probably a whole conversation for a diving podcast. But I just was fascinated. I've never had that experience. So you're doing this work. You started as an entrepreneur, which is a path for sure. Those that come out of college and go straight into corporate, there's one path certainly as well, but come out as an entrepreneur doing what you love. I might be interpreting some of what you said here, but you put that on the side to take a corporate job because it had benefits. Yeah. It had a consistent salary. There was some financial upside, I'm guessing. You're in commercial lending. You hit your numbers. There's financial rewards, right?
Sure. Yeah. It's my father always said, you work for a paycheck. You don't work for a passion.
Do you agree with that?
I don't. It's if you have the three aspects, if you have a passion that you're good at and that you can make money at, those can pay off. Working for a paycheck, it can be a comforting cage. You always have that there, or you might not. I mean, you can get terminated. The company can get bought out. It's kind of a false sense of security. For the time being and the day-to-day, and when you're paycheck to paycheck, it's hard to get out of it. It's impossible to even think about it. So that's one of the things that kind of held me in. You can work for a paycheck or you can work for your passion. You just got to kind of pick between the two.
In some ways, do you think it's binary? It's an either or? Do you think you could get one and the same? Because I think what we're going to dive into, no pun intended. Actually, Maybe it was intended. What we're going to dive into is, you're doing both and you've discovered that. So, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, but what I mean for working for a paycheck is doing something you really don't want to be doing. Working in a factory for me, I mean, I enjoyed certain aspects of my banking career. It was a pretty cushy job. It was not satisfying to me. It was didn't pay my soul what it needed to have. So it depends on how you want your pay.
Yeah. Didn't pay your soul. I like that. Okay. So now you are doing something, and I've been a little coy by not jumping into this right out of the gates because this was sort of a stop the press situation for me when your wife mentioned what you were doing. And I was like, hang on. And I said at the top of the show, you're sitting behind you on the wall. I'm looking at maybe 100 teeth attached to a board. Tell us about those teeth.
So these are Megalodon teeth. These they're a recovered variety of shark fossilized teeth, but these are all Megalodon back up on the board behind me. They're anywhere between 3.6 and 23 million years old. That's where they've been carbon dated. They're anywhere from 1.5 inches all the way up close to 7 inches in size. So it's just a really cool experience that is available, where we live to be able to go out and dive for these, recover them.
Megalodon teeth diving. Like it's a thing. It's a career. It's an industry. I've looked it up. It's not necessarily what you see at the random, fossil purveyor when you're traveling the country or something. Like this is a whole industry. And
it is.
This is how you make your living.
This is how I make my living now. Yes. Yep. I had something I was good at. I had something that I had a passion for, but I couldn't figure out how to make it a full-time career and to have it be something that I can jump right into and grow and try to grow quickly. This all stemmed, diving for Megalodon teeth was actually just a recreational dive that I did with the dive shop that I worked for way back when. So I came down here in 2020 just for a weekend, dove 3-4 days, so it was an extended weekend, and came up with a bunch of Megalodon teeth enjoyed every second of it. I'm more of a mission-based diver. I don't really have fun cruising along reefs, looking at fish. I've always wanted something that I can accomplish during my dives. And this really fit the ticket. I didn't realize there was much value in the teeth at the time. I gave almost all of them away. I had my original board with, I think, 8 or 9 teeth that I kept, but I really enjoyed it. And then I started, I was like, oh, I'd like to do that again. So I started looking into Megalodon teeth, and I started seeing them up for sale. I realized there was money in it. So that's, if I could do something that I was passionate about and I loved doing and make money in it, that's what I was looking for. That was the ticket.
That's the ticket. In so many ways, that's the ticket. You just articulated it. And there's a bridge I want to explore with you in your story. So you are a native Michigander, and
correct,
I'm just presuming that's where a bulk of your family reside, your parents and siblings, maybe cousins and aunts and uncles and things along those lines, I'm guessing. You're in corporate lending for a bank, and that's providing you a nice income and benefits and some certainty in your life. One day, the next day, you have moved to coastal North Carolina. You're not banking. You moved your family. There's a whole conversation, right, that has to happen in a family. I'll leave it at that. If you're going to do something as dramatic as, well, we're going to leave. We have children, but we're going to leave and we're going to go halfway across the country, and we don't really know anyone because this is my passion. Like, I'd like to explore that, but for people who are listening to this going, wait, he did what? To do what? He's diving for Megalodon teeth? And I'm sure I'm going to mispronounce that at least once on this episode, Megalodon. Tell us about, okay, you had this epiphany. You came here in 2020, you did a dive. You're like, whoa, how did you get there? Were you able to think about, I'm going to leave this behind, my support network of my family, the job, whatever, and go do this?
Yeah. So I was divorced and got remarried. And it was one of those things. This has been something that, that the diving thing has been throughout me my entire life. It's something that I've always known that I wanted to do full time. And I just came home one day, and it was winter and it was cold and my feet were wet. And I was in dress shoes and a suit. And I came home and I sat down and I said, I feel like I'm working for a 401k and a paycheck. And I've done this for long enough. And my wife said, well, what would you want to do? And I said, I would want to dive for, full time. At the time I was doing underwater search and salvage part time. So that was, here and there, somebody sunk a boat, rings watches, not really a steady, reliable, stable source of income. At least not in Michigan. And I told her, I said, I would move down to North Carolina and I would dive for Megalodon teeth. That conversation happened in November of 2023. We came down here in January of 2024 for a visit, just to kind of check it out. Again in April, to talk to a couple of the commercial divers that are doing this full time, to kind of learn what to do and what not to do. My wife fell in love with it. And, just one of the biggest sayings that has always stuck with me is that when you're on your deathbed, you are going to regret the things that you did not do way more than the things you did do. And that's what I was afraid of. I was afraid of being 75 years old, sitting at home, retired, and look back and say, why the hell didn't I just give it a shot? It could have been great. I could fall on my face, but at least do it. At least try something. And I've always had that burn, that desire to do something else.
Was there any part of you that was thinking, I don't know, like, this is risky, I'm giving up a lot, I have a certain income that we can rely on that comes with benefits, I could maybe dive on the side and maybe I take more vacations where I could go do this diving and do search and rescue for the sheriffs on the nights and weekends?
No, not at all. I burned the ships, to be honest with you. I really did. Yep. I cashed it all in. My wife cashed it all in to do this. And that, I think, is one thing that's kind of important, is that, you got to be all in. You got to, because that safety net of, 6 months in, it's not going the way I want to go. I'm just going to go pick up another banking job, which, man, the amount of times during the first 12 months that was there, that I looked at it several times, made phone calls and nothing panned out. Thank goodness, because it's just, you never know what the next day is going to be. Doors kept opening. I kept having good conversations with people and things just kept falling into place.
That all in is a really interesting concept because it takes a lot. The older we get, I personally think it gets a lot harder. We have more at stake. We're giving up things that are comfortable to us, that are a level of certainty, whether that's our relationships with friends or family or the paycheck or a career where you know if things go sideways at this place, I know my job, I know the players, I could hustle a job somewhere else. I think it is really interesting to explore that because there's also a mindset that's, can you increment it? Can you do a toe dip approach and do it on the side until you prove it works? And then if you get enough traction and you think it can replace your income enough, then you do it. So it's a bit more of a risk managed approach. I think I know what you're going to say, but can you just break down your thoughts between those two?
Yeah. So I think it kind of depends on what you're going into. With MIG diving here off the coast, it's so weather dependent. So it's not one of those things that I could just really kind of rely on the weekends to just go out and start building it that way. There's a lot of time afterwards. So you get the teeth and then you've got, 20 to 30 hours after a couple days out there cleaning, labeling. So it's not anything that I really wanted to do part-time. I mean, I suppose I could have done it for 5 years and then jumped in, but I'm 44 years old. I don't have that much time. If I'm going to make that big of a change in my life, I just wanted to go all in. If I wasn't in 100%, it was going to be hard not to be in at all.
I hear you. I'm the same way. That's certainly how I felt about the changes I made for what I'm doing, leaving similarly financial services, a bit of a different sector in the wealth management space, leaving a place where I was a native, and that was California, a place I'd never thought I would leave. And it was interesting. I had a similar conversation with someone, I don't know, 3 years ago, who was suggesting, hey, why don't you build your company more? Could you do it on the sides and keep working until you figure it all out? And I was like, I don't see how that will lead to success for me, because I'll have one foot in each and it wouldn't lead to the desired outcome. I would crack. I wouldn't be successful being an entrepreneur, and I probably wouldn't be as focused as I needed to be to do a good job where I was getting a W-2. So I got to make a decision here. And the other thing that you say, you're 44 and you don't have much time. I think you're talking to a 2-time Widowmaker survivor. So I'm nodding as you say that. We don't know when our time is up. And so for some of us who are sitting around thinking, well, I'll get to do the things I want to do when I retire. Maybe. And how much time will you have? What will your physical condition be? What will your energy be? And so forth. So I hear what you're saying. And for some, this might really resonate with them.
Yeah, I'm definitely not a young entrepreneur. With that comes the benefit of experiencing life, knowing both sides of the coin of the comfortable cage, and then
cage.
Knowing what it takes to start a business, and having a lot of experience in seeing businesses and working with them, and knowing taxes and just kind of, I had a wealth of knowledge from my prior employment that really kind of helped shape this. I was able to take a look at, run the numbers, the margins, get an idea of where things were at, how much money I have saved up, how long is that going to last me? Really to take a look. So there's a lot beyond the diving and, changing careers. There was a long planning process in this too. So it was not necessarily spur of the moment. It happened fast as soon as I realized that it was a good possibility.
You moved out here in 2023.
2024.
Sorry, 2024. Sorry, you packed up the car, so to speak, drove southeast and landed here. How long did it take you before you felt like, yeah, this is working, this is coming together, I can earn money doing this, I feel some level of stability?
About 12 months.
Okay.
It took me about a full year. And during that full year, it was a big struggle. I kind of figured that I would come down and things would be lined up right away, and I would have enough underwater recovery and salvage jobs to make it through until I got the Megalodon 2 thing figured out, and it didn't come through. I mean, the first 12 months were absolutely the hardest. And it was just one of those things where I kept grinding and, social media and diving and research and breaking into the market. So, that's another thing, is just going from the service industry to the retail, is building a client base. And it took me that long to get it where I have, regular customers, and I'm in shops now and online and Facebook and getting the website revamped. So the first 12 months was really just focused on building the company, and it was slow, but it just started to really kind of take off this past August.
And you're on the water. I mean, I know so much as weather permitting, but multiple times a week.
Yep.
All right. And when you're out there, do you overnight? I think you do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
you do. So you're out there by yourself on your boat.
I've got one other person with me.
You do. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
I was going to say, it's like, be a little tough. And I was like, that was my next question. How do you do that? Okay. All right. So you have a little companionship, and you've got a partner, and you're looking out for each other. Okay. How do you start to think about defining success or fulfillment now?
I think success is not only just the financials of it. I think it's seeing the growth of the company. It's seeing your return on your hard work come back solely to you instead of somebody else. I'm the company that I'm working for now is myself. So the hours of dedication that I put in when it works, that's my success, is the time and the hours that don't pay off for 90 days or 6 months, and having those pan out after you put that much time in. That's where I really kind of measure success, is the seeds that I planted, did they grow? And if they grow, great, I was successful, and things are headed in, the right direction. There's always, the measurement of financial growth. That's huge, but there's also the aspect of, how many people are you reaching? How many people are writing you back now saying, hey, I've been watching your story. It's, that's amazing. You took the leap. You did. I enjoy seeing your posts and your videos and everything that's going on in your life. So knowing that I'm touching other people too, to me, that's successful. If I can just reach a few people and maybe spark either an inspiration to go out on their own, or even just go dive, do something new.
Inspiring others, leaving a legacy. Yeah. What about the process of making this shift? What were some of the big learnings? And maybe just even for yourself, what did you learn about yourself?
I'm limited on what I can do. And the biggest lesson that I've learned is that the value in time. That's been the biggest shift for me, is when you're working a 9 to 5, you kind of watch the clock. Okay, I check in at 9, done at 5. And now it's, where can I squeeze out another hour to send emails or, edit video, or what more can I do? The time factor, I've really taken, the biggest change, I think, is that I don't have a 7-day book week. I don't really look at weekends anymore. Saturday, Sunday, they're another day to get stuff done. And that's really what it takes, is just taking every minute and utilizing it the best you can to get what you really want in life, what fulfills you. It's not one of those things that you can sit back and say, this is what I want to do, this is where I want to go, and just have it happen. It's something that you've got to put every second into. And that's all I think about. I mean, I have a lot of, when I wake up in the morning, that's my business is the first thing I think about. When I go to sleep at night, I kind of recount and take a look. Okay, what did I do today? What were my successes? What am I going to do tomorrow? And just kind of lay things out for the next day. So have a plan, be prepared, write stuff down. Just with any 9 to 5, you've got goals, but now they're your own.
I totally relate to what you're saying there. And the shift of the mental shift, even the soul shift to go from quote unquote 9 to 5 and working for the weekend, working for a paycheck, working for your 2 to 3 weeks vacation, wherever, whatever it is for you. Maybe it's 5 weeks, who knows? And for those that are entrepreneurial minded and have that risk appetite, doing something that you're building that you are absolutely passionate about. I feel the same way with what I'm doing with More. There aren't time constraints of what I'm doing because I just enjoy it. And that's it. Whatever day it is and I need to work on it, I'll work on it because I enjoy it. I believe I'm making an impact for people and helping them. And so anyways, enough about me, but I totally can relate what you're saying. Was there anything that held you back as you went through this decision process? I'd say, oftentimes, and I neglected to do this, and I'm kicking myself, for folks who've made a career pivot or some sort of life pivot, I ask about, did you have a code 3 moment? Doesn't have to be what I went through in the cabin of an ambulance with, undergoing a massive heart attack. But it sounds to me like, if I heard correctly, your code 3 moment was coming back in the snow, wearing wingtips and a suit or whatever. Like, what am I doing? This has to change. Was that it? Or was there another one that just was that aha, like, this is not working, I got to make a change?
No, I would say that I felt that passion and drive and that burn throughout my banking career. So 18 years, I really felt that way. And I think the big change is when I got married to my wife, she just supported me, blind faith, just 100% backing, which is crazy. You don't find that very often. I mean, especially with me coming in and saying, hey, I'm going to dive full time for Megalodon teeth, and I'm going to support our family diving for ancient prehistoric shark's teeth 40 miles offshore, in 100 feet of water, and people are going to buy them. And she dove all in. So I couldn't have done it without her.
Essentially, did anything hold you back?
Just the fear of not being able to pay the bills, and cashing everything out and go in that direction, the comfort, but the burn was always there. So it was just the paycheck every week, the health insurance, having that there as stability was, it's a huge part of life that I hung on to. But no, once the decision was made, that was it.
No looking back, burning ships, as you said. And it's interesting when you talk about like the way that we think about, the certainty of the paycheck and the benefits, and letting that go and leaping into the unknown, which is a lot of faith. And you have good fortune, and I count myself in this category too, that we have very supporting life partners, in this case wives, who are there and can be a rock and can willingly hold our hand and take that leap with us. It's really a special thing, I think, because you have to, if your partner isn't so on board, I think it becomes a very different equation.
I don't know how that would work, because you've got to have your partner 100% on board with it. If they're not, it tends to be them fighting it. I don't know how. I would either have to do it all alone or I'd have to have a supporting partner.
For those that don't know a lot about Megalodon diving and that industry, give us a little sneak peek. Like when I met with you, we had a nice coffee, and then you're like, oh, I've got teeth in my car. It was like, and you pulled out this display case, sort of have this feeling of, oh, do you want to buy a watch? You had all these shark's teeth in there, and ranging in various sizes from small to large. And I guess this is a display case you take to, I don't know, not farmers markets, but something
vendor
like
events
that. Vendor events and things. Just what is a day in the life of a Megalodon tooth hunter like?
So I can kind of walk you through the process, and it's early mornings on dive days. I'm up at 4:00 in the morning, typically out the door by 5, gear loaded up by 6, boat launched 6:30. You try to get out just as soon as the sun's coming up. You've got about a 2-hour ride out there. Some days it's beautiful, flat calm, nice ride. Other days you're getting the crap kicked out of you, and it can be cold. I'll go out when it's 40 degrees on the surface. So it can be beautiful, or it can be a very difficult ride in and out. Currents can be a factor. Sometimes you'll get down into the water and it's ripping down there. So you've got to make sure you hang on to the line. Murphy's Law always applies. you get out there, you anchor up, and you're doing these dives anywhere between 95 and 115 feet off these ledges. And it's just the most peaceful place to be for me is underneath the water. You're weightless, you're diving down looking for these prehistoric fossils. And all of a sudden you're clearing the sand, you're clearing the rocks, something pops up, and it's a big, 5.5-inch prehistoric Megalodon tooth that you're the first one to touch that in, 3, 4, 10, 12 million years. Do the dives, you pull up as many teeth as you can, you head back. Typically after a day or two of diving, you're pretty spent the next day. So it's you're home by 7, 8 o'clock, and typically it's a hot shower in bed. Next couple days you have that time you're gone, you've got to catch up on your messages, social media. Then the next full day is cleaning teeth. You got to soak them in water, clean them, take them out, size them, list them, label them, take pictures, upload to the website, multiple platforms you got to load them on. So it's a lot of, when you take a look at a sole proprietor for a business, you look at that person, they're really doing every single aspect of a normal business. The shipping, the inventory, the labor, the marketing, the bookkeeping. So all of that is stuff that's kind of behind the scenes that not a lot of people see. There's some people that do wholesale where they just go out and dive for the teeth and sell them wholesale at a discount. But I really wanted to build the business aspect of it. I enjoyed that. I wanted to have something that when I go to retire, I have something that I can sell other than, buckets of teeth. So that's kind of the day in, day out. You've got all the aspects of your average business, but the part that really kind of brings you home is when I'm on that boat and it's 9 o'clock in the morning and I'm running out to a ledge, I'm thinking I could be punching a clock right now or walking into a Zoom meeting and, I'm 30 miles offshore and, it's 80 degrees and I'm about to go dive down with sharks and fish and just do something that not a lot of people get to do. And there's nothing could take me away from that now that I've had a taste of it and I know what it is. It would take something very catastrophic for my life to change now.
Oh, thanks for that. It's a fascinating world you opened my eyes to, and we're grateful for the teeth that you shared with us for the family. They were a huge hit. I find the whole thing incredibly fascinating. Matt, I think your journey, thank you for sharing it so honestly on Code 3 with us. I think it's really wonderful. And I think a lot of what you're talking about will land with people who are asking those questions like, what if this is what I love to do? The clock is ticking and I'm sitting here in an office on a Zoom call, punching the clock or whatever it is, and I want to try something else. And I think there was some inspiration here for sure in what you shared. Matt, and everything we talked about today, I like on the show for people to walk away from a discussion with some sort of tip or book to read or idea that they can put into practice as soon as today. A quote, anything come to mind that you'd like to pass on or reiterate that we've already covered?
The biggest quote that I hope resonates with people is the same thing. You're going to regret the things you did not do more than the things you did. Write a plan. Just start writing stuff down. If this is something that you want to have happen, the first step is to write it down. Get it on a piece of paper. Take a look at it. Figure out if it's something that is doable, whether it's part-time or full-time, but just get started. Don't get caught up in the details. You just get started somehow, some way, and do a step towards it every day. 10, 15 minutes. Think about it. Write it down. Just keep it in the forefront of your mind and work towards it.
Action creates clarity. And when you get that clarity, you can get the confidence to move forward. I love it. Matt Hunt, how can listeners find you? Where are you located on the interwebs?
Yeah, so my primary site is blackwaterrecoverydivers.com, or you can just type in bwrdivers.com. Just click on Meg Tooth Shop, and that's going to run you through all the fossils I have for sale. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, so pretty much all the social media platforms I'm on. But Facebook and my website have been primary places that you'll be able to find my fossils and a little bit more about my story and some pictures and some cool videos of doing recoveries and things I've done over the years.
Awesome. We'll get those links in the show notes, so you'll have access to those. Matt, thank you again for being a guest on Code 3. I thought that the conversation was really interesting. I continue to be fascinated by what you do and inspired, quite frankly, by the journey and the courage to pack it up and make a very bold leap for something that you were really passionate about. And you've really made it work. And that's just it really incredible. A couple things that jumped out to me throughout the course of the conversation. What you said earlier, are you working for a paycheck or are you working for passion? And I think that's a really interesting thing I'm going to sit with today when I think about things. And can you work for both? Maybe. Is it so binary? But it's an interesting thing for us to contemplate. And yeah, you've said it a couple times here. You regret the things you didn't do, and I think that's absolutely right. It's a little intimidating to think that way, but maybe it could also be a source of real inspiration to move forward and to just try. And which ties to the last thing that really jumped out is that you said is take some little steps and do it regularly. You want to move forward. If you're not going to get fit by going to the gym once. It doesn't work that way. You got to go regularly, repeatedly, consistently to see a change. And I think that applies here as well as Matt articulated. So thank you so much, Matt. If this conversation resonated with you in any way, I invite you to explore our website, bemorealigned.com. That is the home of more. And what is more? It is a destination for accomplished, high-achieving professionals who've been successful but are tired of living in this notion of numb success. They're ready to engage with something called aligned living or some level of aligned reinvention. And we exist for people at that crossroads who are ready to get radically honest and build a life that maps to who they are now. I always want to hear from listeners. I check this email. I would love to hear about anything on your mind or suggestions for future guests. I can be reached at hello@bemorealigned.com. And remember, life doesn't wait for the perfect moment. It waits for the moment you decide to stop settling. So when your status quo feels like a resounding status no, it's time to listen and act. I'm AJ Jones. Until next time, stay honest, stay aligned, and keep answering the call.